Mark Levin here. The post-election economy could be a minefield of inflation, massive debt, and currency instability. That's why I count on gold for my financial protection. When it comes to gold, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're one of the top gold companies in America, and that's who I turn to for my own investments. Call them now, 800-900-8000, for a free gold investment kit, and see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Don't wait and see if post-election chaos destroys your savings. Act preemptively. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, it's amazing, America. It's amazing how pathetic Biden, Harris, Sullivan, Blinken, the whole crowd, how pathetic they are. If Israel hadn't defied the demands of this regime, they wouldn't have gone into Rafah. Netanyahu told them, that's where the leadership of Hamas is. They said, we're going to start cutting off arms if you go there. So Netanyahu said, well, we have to go there, we have to defeat them, and we have to kill the heads of Hamas. And there were leaks and attacks on Netanyahu personally trying to smear him. From Biden, from Harris, from Blinken, from Sullivan. Today they got Sinwar. Sullivan, the national security advisor, announced that they did it with the assistance of American intelligence. The Pentagon said Israel did it all by itself. There was no American intelligence. They happened upon him and they killed him. It really is appalling the way this administration conducts itself. They didn't want Israel to go into Rafah. They didn't want Israel to take out Nasrallah. They've been demanding ceasefire. That's the only word they know. It's like they're parrots. They learned one word, ceasefire. Ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire. While Israel is decimating Hamas, destroyed its leadership, decimating Hezbollah, destroyed its leadership, is now turning its attention to the mothership. That's right, to Iran, and they're being told by Biden, don't hit their nuclear sites and don't hit their oil platforms. Which, of course, is exactly what you'd want to hit. Because if Israel doesn't take out their nuclear sites, nobody else will, and we will have a nuclearized Iran. Israel has, by itself, changed the nature now of the Middle East. And those liberal Democrats out there, and some of my Jewish, I won't call them friends, some of the Jewish, people that I know are going to vote Democrat. Republicans in Congress, writes David Milstein, my stepson, and he posts it. Republicans in Congress have uncovered more examples that the Biden-Harris administration partial arms embargo continues. Senator Tom Cotton and Mitch McConnell sent a letter detailing 3 weapons and ammunition being withheld, delayed, including Mk-84 2,000-pound bombs, Apache attack helicopters, Caterpillar D9 tractors, which they put lead plating on so they can clear minefields. And the list goes on. Representative McCall sent a letter detailing the 2,000-pound bombs and more than 10 weapon cases Israel purchased via direct commercial sale. They bought it on their own. That are being withheld and delayed for over 4 months. Chairman McCall, chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, pointed out in his letter below, Israel continues to face unprecedented threats from Iran and its terrorist proxies, including Hezbollah in Lebanon, which has fired at Israel almost daily since October 8, causing civilian casualties, displacing over 60,000 civilians. Last week, Israel used a number of 2,000-pound bombs to successfully eliminate arch-terrorist and mass murderer Hezbollah leader Nasrallah and other top Hezbollah leaders. You rightly called this strike a measure of justice. We all wish Israel did not need these larger bombs, but they are operationally necessary, as Israel's enemies, including Hamas and Hezbollah, are intentionally using deeply buried subterranean bunkers and tunnels. I call on you to allow these weapons, which are ready to ship right now, to be sent to Israel immediate. I am also aware of more than 10 other weapon cases purchases via direct commercial sale that have experienced unusual, unexplained delays. Under National Security Presidential Directive 56, the State Department was directed to complete the review and adjudication of license applications within 60 days of receipt. But these cases have been awaiting final approval for an average of over 4 months. See, they're slow walking them. Slow walking them. It's clearly not the case that everything else is moving in due course, as unnamed State Department officials have leaked. And the list goes on. In fact, today, one of the reprobates said, other than 2,000-pound bombs, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, everybody on Capitol Hill knows what they're talking about. Everybody. Here from Breitbart, Joe Biden tries to take credit for Sinwar's killing, but opposed Israel's operations. Harris warned of consequences, writes Joel Pollack. Israel confirmed today that its soldiers had killed Hamas leader Sinwar during a battle the day before in Gaza. That would have been impossible if Joe Biden and Vice President Harris had their way. Nevertheless, Biden tried to take credit in a statement welcoming Sinwar's death on Sunday. Quote, shortly after the October 7 massacres, I directed special operations personnel and our intel professionals to work side by side with their Israeli counterparts to help locate and track Sinwar and other Hamas leaders hiding in Gaza. With our intelligence help, the IDF relentlessly pursued Hamas's leaders, flushing them out of their hiding places and forcing them onto the run. In reality, Biden and Harris stood in the way of the Israeli operations that ultimately led to soldiers finding and killing Sinwar as follows. Sinwar was killed in Rafah. Rafah is a town in southern Gaza near the border with Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu had wanted to enter Rafah in February, saying the Hamas leaders and Israeli hostages were there. Biden openly opposed Israel's plans. Harris warned of quote-unquote consequences for Israel, including an arms embargo, which they still have in place. Netanyahu eventually ignored them. Israel entered Rafah in May. Few civilians were harmed. 2, Sinwar was killed near the Philadelphia corridor. Sinwar's body was found in a building near the Philadelphia corridor, the road along the border that was the first thing Israeli soldiers seized when entering Gaza. The Biden-Harris administration had pushed Israel to give up control of the Philadelphia corridor and cease fire talks. Israel refused, saying that corridor was essential to stopping weapons from flowing in and Hamas leaders from fleeing. Notably, Sinwar's body was found with cash and passports, suggesting he was trying to escape across the Philadelphia corridor. 3, Sinwar was killed despite threats of an arms embargo. The Biden administration threatened and Harris endorsed an arms embargo against Israel just days before Sinwar was killed. And I just told you, there is in fact an arms embargo. The regime demanded that Israel surge humanitarian aid into Israel and scale back military operations, giving Israel 30 days in which to comply. Number 4, Sinwar was killed despite relentless calls for a unilateral ceasefire. Biden and Harris had explicitly called for a temporary ceasefire to allow for a hostage deal. It was their intention that the temporary deal become permanent. 5, Sinwar was killed despite promises of intel in exchange for a ceasefire. So to entice Israel to agree to a ceasefire with unfavorable conditions, the Biden-Harris administration promised to provide information that it was said would identify the location of Hamas leaders. The idea was to end the war while offering Israel the prospect of targeting strikes on Hamas leaders. Ultimately, Sinwar was killed in an ordinary battle, not a targeted operation. They didn't use American intelligence. The episode recalled Biden's contradictory position on the U.S. operation that killed al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden in 2011. Biden admitted later that he had opposed the operation as being too risky for political reasons. Once it was successful, Biden and then President Obama later campaigned on it for re-election, with Biden famously declaring, Osama Biden is dead and General Motors is alive, referring to the automotive industry bailout. Now, White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, speaking to reporters on Air Force One, while accompanying the president en route to Europe, gave credit to the Israeli Defense Forces for the operation. Yes, but he also gave credit to himself and the regime. Talking about intelligence. There was no intelligence. I have posted on social media. An Israeli drone went into the building, saw it was him. He threw a stick at it. You see that, Mr. Producer? And they blew him to smithereens. If you're willing to look at it, well, his brain exited his head. Did you see that, Mr. Producer? Yes. Yes. I don't think those 72 virgins are going to like what they see. Do you, Mr. Producer? No, I don't think so. He'll burn in hell. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The upcoming election isn't just about choosing leaders. It's about bracing for the economic fallout that could follow. You know, history shows that post-election periods can bring economic turmoil. But this time, with our national debt skyrocketing and global tensions rising, we could be facing unprecedented risks. We could see runaway inflation or even a currency crisis. That's why I encourage people to diversify and look at gold as a financial safety net. Gold has been said to be a reliable wealth shield for thousands of years through some of the worst economic storms. And for my gold investments, I trust Advantage Gold. They're who I buy from exclusively, and I recommend them to anyone serious about helping to protect their wealth. You can call them right now at 800-900-8000, 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. You can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be happy you did. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Yeah, it's amazing. This administration is so pathetic. Bunch of mental munchkins. And they don't learn. This clown at the State Department, I don't know his name. He's a very peculiar-looking, bizarre individual. Very nerdy and very condescending. No reason to be condescending, but he is. He says, and now we can find, Palestinians who can run Gaza and then connect Gaza with the West Bank so they can have their own state. That's not happening. The Israelis are fighting this war. And we have these fools at the State Department. We have these fools in Washington sitting back telling them what to do, what they're going to do, things of that sort. It's so bizarre and so outrageous. Why would the Israelis do that? They're losing men. They're losing citizens. Their economy is in a difficult situation. Nobody with any sense would listen to these people. Certainly the Israelis. So that's not going to happen. It never should happen. And they're still fighting the war. They're not done with Hamas. They're right in the middle of battles with Hezbollah. They're losing soldiers. And of course, they have to fight with Iran. And these fools are already talking about what's going to look like after. So they take credit for something they had nothing to do with. And in fact, they were stabbing Israel in the back repeatedly with leaks, personal smears on the Prime Minister, trying to topple the Prime Minister. And just so you folks know, in Israel, He's never been more popular, and his party has never been more popular. If there was an election today, he'd win in a landslide. And by the way, Trump is popular in Israel too, not Harris. And here is what Benjamin Netanyahu had to say. Cut 19, go.
1 year ago, Yahya Sinwar, the terrorist chief of Hamas, launched the October 7th massacre against Israel. It was the bloodiest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. It was the worst attack on the Jewish state since the founding of Israel. Sinwar's terrorists murdered in cold blood 1,200 people. That's elderly people, Holocaust survivors, children. They brutally raped women. They beheaded men. They burnt babies alive. And they took some 250 men, 251 women, men, and children hostage to the dungeons of Gaza. Today, the mastermind of this day of sheer evil is no more. Yahya Sinwar is dead. He was killed in Rafah by the brave soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces. While this is not the end of the war in Gaza, it's the beginning of the end. To the people of Gaza, I have a simple message. This war can end tomorrow. It can end if Hamas lays down its arms and returns our hostages. Hamas is holding 101 hostages in Gaza, who are citizens of 23 countries, citizens of Israel, but citizens of many other countries. Israel is committed to doing everything in our power to bring all of them home. And Israel will guarantee the safety of all those who return our hostages. But to those who would harm our hostages, I have another message. Israel will hunt you down and bring you to justice. I also have a message of hope to the peoples of the region. The axis of terror that was built by Iran is collapsing before our eyes. Nasrallah is gone. His deputy Muhsin is gone. Haniyeh is gone. Def is gone. Sinwar is gone. The reign of terror that the Iranian regime has imposed on its own people and on the peoples of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen, this too will come to an end. All those who seek a future of prosperity and peace in the Middle East should unite to build a better future. Together, we can push back the forces of darkness and create a future of light and hope for all of us.
In this regime, the Harris, Biden, Blinken, Sullivan regime, are withholding weapons from Israel, telling them not to give a death blow against the Iranians. Ladies and gentlemen, if Israel were to hit Iran's nuclear sites and its oil centers, that government would collapse. It does not have the support of the people. It does not. The United States isn't going to do it. No other country is going to do it. Israel wants to do it. Israel wants to get this done. Can you imagine if this regime were toppled? How fantastic that would be. And while they try to rewrite history, the appeasers and the subsidizers of terrorism in Iran, that is the Harris, Biden, Blinken, Sullivan regime, National Review had an outstanding editorial. And since I only have 1 minute, I got to wait to read it, but it is an outstanding editorial. Biden-Harris threat against Israel is a moral disgrace. Now, this was written and published this morning before anything about Sinwar was even known. And let us not forget, that's been the position. They did not want Israel to take out Nasrallah. They threatened to cut off weapons, and they said, we're not going to help you. They accused Israel of committing terrorist acts with the pagers and the walkie-talkies when they went off. Everything Israel has done, anything Israel has done, has come under vicious attack by the regime in Washington, D.C., the anti-Semites in the State Department, by Kamala Harris, who has never supported Israel's efforts to defend itself and defeat the terrorists. You understand? She wants your vote. She wants your vote. No way. No way in hell. Folks, we may be standing on the precipice of a post-election economic meltdown. Any election can send shockwaves through our financial system, but this time, the stakes could be higher than ever. Reckless spending, mounting debt, misguided policies has set the stage for potential economic disaster. We can see rapid inflation or even attempts to undermine our currency. That's why I've always relied on diversification and gold for protection. It's been said to be a timeless safeguard against economic chaos, and in these uncertain times, it's more crucial than ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold exclusively. They're one of the top gold companies in America, and they're who I turn to for my own investments. Call 800-900-8000 right now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help protect you from post-election chaos. You might even qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Mark Levin, radio's hell-raising intellectual. Call now, 877-381-3811.
Public service announcement. Please vote now. Please vote before Election Day. Please vote early. You're going to feel better about it. You'll get your vote banked. People won't bother you anymore. And then you will have time to help get people to vote. Call them on the phone. Talk to your friends and neighbors. I'm quite serious. Whatever your walk of life is, whatever you do, whether it's with your hands or... I don't care if you're a surgeon, a janitor, a plumber, electrician, a truck driver, a homemaker, it doesn't matter. Whatever walk of life you're in, you've got to do your part. And your part is to vote early and see if you can get other people to vote, to be more active than you've ever been. There's millions of us. So please vote early. It's very, very important. This could be a very, very close election. You know, I'm hearing the same people on TV, and I won't name them. Some of them are my friends. We're talking about this red wave in 2022. We're going to win 60 seats in the House and 7 or 8 in the Senate. They were dead wrong. Dead wrong. We didn't take the Senate, and we squeaked by in the House. So I don't know why they continue in this kind of mindset. I really don't. So it's very, very important that you vote early, that you not listen to these people who are basically entertaining, but very little else. It's very, very important. National Review, Biden-Harris threat against Israel is a moral disgrace. This editorial went up literally hours before the Israelis killed Sinwar. Remember, the United States did not want him to go into Rafah. The United States did not even want him to kill Sinwar. The United States didn't want them to go after Nasrallah. The United States didn't want ceasefire is the magic word that they use. In other words, surrender. They wrote, Israel's ongoing war against Iran and its terrorist proxies is a political problem for Democrats. While most Americans sympathize with Israel, a segment of the Democratic Party is harshly critical of the U.S. ally, and in some cases openly pro-Hamas, and that goes for the media. This contingent is loud and heavily concentrated in the swing state of Michigan. Ever since the October 7 attacks, Biden and Harris have sought to thread this needle by talking about their commitment to Israel's defense while routinely haranguing Israel for its conduct of the war and pressuring the nation to operate, quote-unquote, with more restraint. This tension has come into full view over the past week. On the one hand, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced that the U.S. would be sending an advanced anti-missile system to Israel, along with troops to operate it to bolster the defense against Iran. On the other hand, Biden has been pressuring Israel into a more limited response to Iran's second ballistic missile attack in 5 months, including publicly opposing an attack on Iran's nuclear fields. In the midst of this, Austin and Secretary of State Blinken sent a joint letter to Israeli officials, promptly released publicly, chastising Israel for not ensuring enough humanitarian aid in Gaza and warning that if Israel does not meet the administration's demands within 30 days, the U.S. could suspend more aid to Israel. Conveniently, this would place the potential aid suspension date a week after the November 5th election. You got that? In other words, Harris can spend the closing weeks of the presidential election arguing to the pro-Hamas caucus that the administration has put Israel on notice, while still claiming to supporters of Israel that no decision has been made to suspend aid. They talk out of both sides of their mouth. The substance of the letter places the blame for insufficient aid getting into the hands of Gazans on Israel, claiming that Israelis are creating too many barriers to aid entering the Strip. Yet Israel must vet aid going in because Hamas has historically used aid deliveries to smuggle in weapons. Also, Hamas inhibits the flow of aid within Gaza, looting delivery trucks and hoarding food and supplies for their own fighters. The Austin-Blinken letter also criticizes various steps Israel has taken against the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, even though evidence points to employees of UNRWA having participated in the October 7 attacks. While the cynicism of the Biden-Harris posture toward Israel may have some rationale in the world of democratic politics, it makes no sense if the goal is actually to end the current Israel-Hamas conflict, free the hostages, improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza, and mitigate the risks of a regional war. Preventing Israel from retaliating against Iran with sufficient force will encourage Iranians to keep sending missiles at Israel, either directly or through Hezbollah, which will force Israel to respond. And threatening Israel with a suspension of more military aid provides an incentive to Hamas leader Sinwar, see, this was ours before, to dig in, reject ceasefire proposals, and further obstruct the delivery of humanitarian aid. It is a moral disgrace for Biden and Harris to excuse Hamas's efforts to block humanitarian aid while threatening to abandon Israel during its righteous war. This constant effort to sabotage the Israelis while pretending to support them in order so some of these left-wing Democrat Jews can go on Fox or go on CNN or go on MSNBC and say, see that? We got a missile system there. See that? See that? Because they put party ahead of everything else. Ahead of everything else. You got to hope enough people see through this. And then, of course, today, the disgrace of Biden, Harris, and Sullivan trying to take credit for killing Sinwar when their regime had absolutely nothing, zero to do with it. And imagine yourself in Netanyahu's shoes. You're fighting Hamas, you're fighting Hezbollah, you're fighting the Houthis, you're fighting Iran, and God knows who else. And you're getting stabbed in the back in the New York Times and Politico Axios. This clown, Barak Ravid, who is really a turncoat on his own country. He's a mouthpiece for the anti-Semites in the State Department. Grotesque. Grotesque. So this little country is doing it with one hand tied behind its back, constant public relations attack from our own regime with their favorite newspapers and media outlets, with France saying they're going to block weapons, with Britain saying they're going to block weapons, with Germany, of all countries, saying, well, we're not going to block weapons, we'll continue to sell them weapons. And in the meantime, Harris, who was questioned about this with Bret Baier, we'll get more into this next hour, she didn't want to answer. Why are you, Harris, funding Iran? Why are you, Harris, giving $200 billion to Iran, which is a police state, which brutalizes its own people, that people don't even support it? Why are you giving $200 billion to Iran in sanctions relief, not enforcing other sanctions and direct payments to enable Iran to build a nuclear weapon? Why are you helping to support Iran so it can sell oil to communist China? Why are you doing that? And thereby giving communist China oil in order to use that oil to build their military machine. This is an insane administration. No elements of this administration, no crumbs of this administration should survive the election. They should be immediately removed. Every damn one of them. from the top to bottom. They're a cancer on our republic. The amount of people who have suffered and died, whether it's on the border, our people, from fentanyl, whether it's slavery, whether it's kids, over 325,000 of them, whether it's Israelis, whether it was peace under Trump, whether the Abraham Accords under Trump, where Iran was buckling, was almost collapsing. What happened in Afghanistan? Our brave heroes murdered. You know, we have hostages in Afghanistan. Americans are still in Afghanistan. God knows if they're alive. They never even talk about them. Ever. This administration has blood on its hands. But it doesn't stop it. They're cold-blooded. They're ignorant. And people who say, well, you know, I know enough to know that there's no way you should cast your precious vote for these reprobates. Absolutely no way. And yet, millions and millions of people will. Even though they're suffering under this regime, with food prices and gasoline prices, the cost of living, lifestyle changes to the negative. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The upcoming election isn't just about choosing leaders. It's about bracing for the economic fallout that could follow. You know, history shows that post-election periods can bring economic turmoil. But this time, with our national debt skyrocketing and global tensions rising, we could be facing unprecedented risks. We could see runaway inflation or even a currency crisis. That's why I encourage people to diversify and look at gold as a financial safety net. Gold has been said to be a reliable wealth shield for thousands of years through some of the worst economic storms. And for my gold investments, I trust Advantage Gold. They're who I buy from exclusively, and I recommend them to anyone serious about helping to protect their wealth. You can call them right now at 800-900-8000, 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. You can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be happy you did. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. I want you to imagine Kamala Harris as Commander-in-Chief, unrestrained by an election. Actually doing what she wants to do, with her radical Marxist Islamist principles at the forefront. Here she is, March 25, 2024. March 25, 2024, when Israel said we need to go into Rafah, which, of course, is where they found Sinwar and the rest of the leaders, and the only way they could defeat Hamas. Cut 4, go.
We have been clear in multiple conversations and in every way that any major military operation in Rafah would be a huge mistake. Let me tell you something. I have studied the maps. There's nowhere for those folks to go. And we're looking at about 1.5 million people in Rafah who are there because they were told to go there, most of them. And so we've been very clear that it would be a mistake to move into Rafah with any type of military operation.
A mistake, but would there be consequences if he does move forward?
Well, we're going to take it one step at a time, but we've been very clear in terms of our perspective on whether or not that should happen.
Are you ruling out that there would be consequences from the United States?
I am ruling out nothing.
You understand? Sinwar would be alive. The whole hierarchy of Hamas would be alive because they hear Harris and they respond. And then the media say, have the Israelis informed you about what they're doing? Netanyahu is defying you. So they trash Netanyahu in the New York Times, in Axios, with this clown Ravid, in Politico, in the Washington Post, in the New York Times. Netanyahu, they don't attend his speech before a joint session of Congress. He's to be dehumanized, like Sam Alito. Yes, Sam Alito, Clarence Thomas, Donald Trump, anybody else who they hate. They love democracy. We all hate it, obviously. And in the Middle East forum, they write, Sinwar's death calls for a critical reassessment of repeated ceasefire demands. Ceasefires should not be ends in themselves, but tools managed carefully to prevent exploitation by militant groups. The tactical advantages gained during ceasefires, regrouping, rearming, and spreading ideology, undermine long-term peace efforts. Engaging in ceasefires can inadvertently legitimize these groups as political actors, eroding public trust in governmental strategies. Ensuring compliance from decentralized militant organizations is challenging, leading to breaches that reignite hostilities. Now, this current moment offers an opportunity to rethink conflict approaches. A comprehensive strategy should combine sustained security measures with diplomatic efforts. Preventing tactical exploitation requires robust, and it goes on. Their point, my point is, if we had really listened to the ceasefire crowd, there'd be no ceasefire. There'd be endless war, endless terrorism. And Israel's doing a favor for the rest of the world, a favor for all of us. And, of course, defending its own people. But one more time, for you people who aren't sure who to vote for, I want you to listen to this Kamala Harris. If she's commander-in-chief, I want you to listen to her dripping hate for the state of Israel, for Netanyahu, and what kind of a country we would have and our allies would have and Israel would have should she succeed. Because remember, she's now surrounded by out-of-the-closet Jew haters, Israel haters, anti-Semites. She's out of the closet surrounded by Obama flunkies. She's serious. She's part of the river to the sea crowd. That's right, I said it. And I mean it. Cut 4, go.
We have been clear in multiple conversations and in every way that any major military operation in Rafah would be a huge mistake. Let me tell you something. I have studied the maps.
She studies the maps. Go ahead.
And we're looking at about 1.5 million people in Rafah who are there because they were told to go there, most of them. And so we've been very clear that it would be a mistake to move into Rafah with any type of military operation.
A mistake, but would there be consequences if he does move forward?
Well, we're going to take it one step at a time, but we've been very clear in terms of our perspective on whether or not that should happen.
Are you ruling out that there would be consequences from the United States?
I am ruling out nothing.
But you owe Netanyahu an apology. You owe him a public apology for the way you've conducted yourself, for the way you've demeaned us as our vice president, for the way you've treated him in his office. He's the democratically elected prime minister of a state, the state of Israel. You owe the state of Israel an apology. By the way, she's never traveled to Israel as vice president of the United States. Think about that. She owes him an apology. She owes the people of Israel an apology. She owes the IDF an apology. But she's incapable of it. She's incapable of it. Our regime, the Biden-Harris-Blinken Sullivan regime, they funded October 7th. They funded the ballistic missiles being shot at Israel in April and last month. They helped fund Hamas and UNRWA. They helped fund Hezbollah and the Houthis. In fact, they've given more money to the enemy, more financial support to the enemy than to our ally. And why the enemy, Iran, continues to get arms from communist China, from fascistic Russia, continues to get funds from the United States. Because we will not enforce the sanctions, they're withholding crucially important ammunition, and military systems from the state of Israel as it still confronts Hezbollah and Hamas and now stares down Iran. But the special pleader for Iran, don't you dare hurt them in a way that's going to destroy them. No, don't you do that. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship. Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. The Bret Baier interview, we had Bret Baier on the first interview after he did the interview with Kamala Harris. And she was a disaster. She was a disgrace. You actually got to see some of the real Kamala Harris without the $1 billion in propaganda and camouflage. Angry, making faces. Obviously, she was unprepared. She didn't answer the questions. As I said last night, if you made her say, answer a question, but don't use Donald Trump's name, she'd be a mime. She'd have nothing coming out of her mouth. And so you were given no reason to vote for her, none whatsoever. She had every opportunity in the world. Every opportunity in the world. And this is why she really doesn't want to talk to people who actually want to question her. But of course, in the corporate media, in the propaganda media, that is, in the media that's out there supporting Hamas, the river to the sea crowd, the media that's out there undermining our country every step of the way, views themselves as American Pravda and American Al Jazeera. She was great on The View, on MSNBC, and the rest of it. CNN. Here's a montage. Cut 8. Go.
The constant jumping in, I couldn't help but feel it's because she's a woman that he's going to keep doing this.
I thought she did. Come on. You know, I say to a woman like this, you know, on the one hand, you want to be treated equally, right? And you should be. I've been raised by strong women. I've been around by strong women. No pushovers, I can tell you that. They stand toe-to-toe. There's no question about it. Women who work hard, yet have children and grandchildren. Women who are self-made professionals. Don't hand us this tripe that she was treated this way because she's a woman. That's just pathetic, Sarah Haynes over at The View. Your fallback position. How stupid are you? Go ahead.
The constant jumping in, I couldn't help but feel it's because she's a woman that he's going to keep doing this.
I thought she did a great job. I was watching in real time. And
here's Donnie Douche.
By Bret Baier. I had always liked him, always thought he was a straight shooter. And the attack mode from the beginning was quite stunning.
Yeah, that was really awful when he insisted that she answer the question, how many illegal aliens have let into the country? For Donnie Douche, that was, yeah, he's a fascist, yeah, he's unhinged, yeah, he's a dictator. You know, the attack mode over there on Fox. And then we have Claire McCaskill, the bloated one, excuse me. Yeah, no, the bloated one, who lost her seat from the Show Me State. Show Me State. Nobody wants her to show anything. Go ahead.
Bret Baier was rude, and it kind of surprised me how rude he was. Yeah. But I thought she did fine. Listen, was it a home run? No. Did she need it to be a home run? Absolutely not.
No. Wasn't a home run, you know. But that Bret Baier, he was rude. He wanted an answer. And he couldn't get one. And for once, there's a real journalist sitting across from her trying to get an answer. And they tried to screw Fox there. They wanted to limit it to 15 minutes. She comes in late. It's all intentional. And it was she. It was she who was told to be combative. It was she who was told to filibuster. See, these aren't real journalists. Claire McCaskill is a bloated, failed former senator from the Show Me State. Now we have Mika. Ooh, this'll be good. Go ahead.
A man who spent his life as a down-the-middle journalist, seeming to throw it all away for his audience of one.
This is what they do. So now Bret Baier isn't a good guy. He threw away his journalism. He used to be down the middle. But now we know he's a right-wing, Hitler-loving, you know, God almighty, this guy's unbelievable. He's hit it so well for all these decades. Right, Mika? Aren't you pathetic? Go ahead.
Interrupting the vice president awkwardly and unnecessarily, ignoring many issues that define
it's funny to hear the morning schmo people, particularly Mika Brzezinski, concerned about the fine points of journalism. Nobody has ever accused that program and those people of being journalists. Ever. Go ahead.
Pain, including a woman's right to health care freedom.
Really proud of
what? Why can't you call abortion abortion? Now it's reproductive rights, when in fact there's nothing to do with reproduction. Now it's health care freedom? Health care freedom? What are you, an idiot? Health care freedom. Pathetic. They're so obsessed with abortion. Have you ever seen anything like this in your life? The one example they come up with in Georgia has nothing to do with the Georgia abortion law. Do they have another example? They had another fraudulent example. Okay, is there a third one? No. They searched the country far and wide for examples where these abortion laws in these states have cost a woman their life, and they can't find one. They can't find one. So they make it up. Go ahead.
She represented her views, her values, and this ticket in front of a conservative audience. Something
here's Pete Buttigieg.
That is a show of strength. That is the exact opposite of the weakness that Donald Trump has demonstrated.
Oh, yeah, she showed strength. Oh, it was unbelievable. It's fantastic. She was rude. She was obnoxious. She was dense. She was unresponsive. She was filibustering, playing all the typical career politician tricks. But she's a woman, you see. She's a woman, that's why. Hey, we have a lot of women in the Republican Party, and they hate all of them. They hate all of them. Let's go on.
Pulling out of going even on CNBC.
So it was almost as if you had a Trump surrogate interviewing Kamala Harris.
Oh, this a-hole's back? Brian Stelter? Back to humiliate himself again? This just shows you the constipated news network has nowhere to go but down when they bring on this tub of lard. And then we have Sonny Houston, who, by the way, has an ancestor who was a slave owner. I can say I don't have any slave-owning ancestors. Oh, yeah. We did ancestry. No slave owners in our family, I'm proud to say. But she's a complete putz. Go ahead.
She, went into the belly of the beast and she went into enemy territory.
Listen to how she talks. Enemy territory, Fox. She went into enemy territory. Sick. Go ahead.
She did that because there are a group of people that have been fed over and over again misinformation and disinformation on Fox News.
Yeah, really? You know what? You come on my show. I'll debate you, genius. You're surrounded by yentas who share your same ideology, your same low IQ, your same propaganda. You're a chorus line for leftism, Marxism, and Islamism. You're a chorus line. How about coming on solo? Genius. Aren't you a lawyer? Oh, she's a lawyer. Oh. Well, I'm scared. And then we have Van Jones, the Maoist. Go ahead, Van.
I thought Kamala Harris did a magnificent job.
A magnificent job. He has no standards. She did a magnificent job. How so? Go ahead.
Rude from the beginning. It was disrespectful from the beginning.
She was disrespectful from the beginning. How would you have handled it, Van Jones? You would have sat there like a bump on a log, let her go on, get 3 questions in, let her do the whole thing trashing Trump? She was there to be interviewed about her views, her substance, her positions, her contradictions. She didn't want to answer those questions. Did she, Van Jones? No, she didn't. So they came in with a strategy. Filibuster, talk over the questioner, don't answer the direct question, move into another position. It's as if they were preparing her for a debate, not for an interview. Not for an interview. All she had to do is say, how many? How many are coming to the country illegally? I don't know. Maybe it was 5 million, 6 million. She didn't want to say. And so they're angry. They're angry because Bret Baier was a journalist. They're angry because Bret Baier has nothing in common with Van Jones. Or Mika Brzezinski, if that is her name. Or that slob from the Show Me State, the former senator. Or Sonny Houston. Oh, she's so intellectually curious, isn't she? Because Bret Baier's not one of them. And that's a good thing. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The big wireless carriers want to limit you to two choices when it comes to data, unlimited or unlimited. And guess what? Both are stupidly expensive. So folks, stop overpaying for data you're never going to use. That's like paying for a pot of coffee when you only need a cup, or filling your entire truck bed full of gas when you only need a tank. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you get to choose how much data you actually want. Listen to this. For just $25 a month, get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data, which is more than enough, plus mobile hotspot. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is easy. There's no contract. There's no activation fees. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you sign up with Pure Talk. Here with my buddy Bill O'Reilly. Good man. Bill O'Reilly, I'll tell you what. If Kamala Harris had been sitting in front of you, I don't think you would have sat there like a bump on a log and let her filibuster and not answer and just spend the whole time attacking her opponent, would you?
Well, I would have had a different strategy than Baier.
I'll tell you what, you may have, but Bret Baier did a great job.
Yeah, he did his job. And I'm not going to criticize him, but there was a strategy that he could have used that he didn't. And it's born out of, I have interviewed 6 presidents and countless people who wanted to be president. So I've really learned the ropes here. And, you know, all you have to do is Google O'Reilly and George W. Bush or Barack Obama or Donald Trump. You'll see. There's a different skill set to do it. So let's just walk through it and stop me if you disagree. I know you will, or you have any further question, because I'm gonna give the Levin audience some new information. And I appreciate you having me on, Mark. Last time we talked, was confronting the presidents, which debuted at #1 on the New York Times list. The 19th time that's happened.
That's amazing.
I guess it brings them great joy to put my name at the top of it. Don't you think?
I'm sure.
Just like you.
Yeah.
So anyway, last night Kamala Harris spoke for 17 minutes and 30 seconds. All right, I had my people put a clock on it. She attacked Trump for 8 minutes and 30 seconds.
Really?
50% of what she said was attacking Trump. Bret Baier asked her only 10 questions in the 28 minutes. And you were absolutely right. You nailed it. And I haven't heard anybody else but you clarify what really happened. This was an intentional strategy on the part of Kamala Harris and her handlers, who run her campaign and pretty much tell her what to do, a lot like Joe Biden. So the strategy was this. You go in and you just say whatever you want. You don't have to answer any of his questions. That's number one. And they drum that into her. Don't be lured into actually answering a question. You don't have to do that. And bloviate, all right, filibuster, as long as you can, so he interrupts you. We want him to do that so that our surrogates in the media, which you rightly pointed out, will criticize you for interrupting her because she's a woman. They baited Baier, but Baier had to do that. He could not sit there mute, all right? So it was a strategy, and you could tell, you didn't need a body language expert to tell, when the vice president walked into the interview, she did not want to be there.
No.
She loathed everything about this. But, and this is a mystery, the handlers felt she would benefit. We'll get to that in a moment. Now, I knew this was going to happen because I've been through it before. I interviewed Obama in 2008, almost the exact same circumstances as the Baier-Kamala interview. Anyway, what Baier should have been prepared for was this dodge. She wasn't going to answer the questions. And when that happens, it's like you interviewing somebody, Mark, and you saying, isn't Pennsylvania, isn't that a state that has Philadelphia in it? And the interview subject goes, I like to hike in the woods.
Yeah.
What? That's not what I asked. That's exactly what she did. And the only way to prepare for that is to do real-time narration of what is happening. That is, and I have done this, look into the camera and say, or look at her and say, Madam Vice President, apparently you don't want to answer my question. We can do one of two things. I can repose it, or we can go on to another question if you don't want to answer it. What would you like to do? That means you're highlighting when it happens.
But she would say, stop interrupting me. She would say, stop interrupting me. I'm trying to answer your question.
She would say, I'm trying, but then when you reach a period of time, you can say, we only have 28 minutes dictated by your staff. And if you're going to have your answers not address the question, we're not going to get anywhere here. And then if you want, you can say this. Baier asked her, and this is a quote, when did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished? That's an interesting question and a vital question because Kamala Harris lied about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. She lied about it. Harris said, Joe Biden, I have watched in the Oval Office to the situation as a judgment and experiment, the experience, she corrected herself, to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people. Then why are you here, madam?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you sitting in this chair? If that's true, he should be the candidate. He went through the primary system.
I thought he said something like that. My recollection, he said something like that. Then why are you here? Didn't he say that, Rich? Something like that.
He did follow up on it. But what you have to do, and Trump should have done this in the first debate with her, is you have to narrate real time what is actually happening. So you're not questioning Kamala. You're basically telling the audience, well, if that's the case, why is the vice president sitting across from me?
Mm-hmm.
You
Can
see
I
what
ask
I mean?
you something? You've done these
Sure.
interviews. You have a lot more patience than I do. You know, after a couple rounds of this, you know what I would have said? You know what? We're done. You don't want to answer the questions? You don't want to answer the questions. The audience needs to know. She won't answer the question. Madam Vice President, it's been a pleasure having you here for 17 seconds. I'm not going to allow you to filibuster. I'm not going to allow you to do this. So rather than go through this fan dance, thank you very much. Now, I'd probably get fired, but I don't care. Because she's being rude to the audience and rude to me.
But I think in the long run, and this comes to the most important part of all this, I think she hurt herself.
I agree with you.
All right? So,
Explain that. Explain that.
All right. So they thought they were going to get benefit. All right? Kamala Harris and her handlers thought that they would benefit from this, or they would never have done it. What's the benefit that they got? 10 questions, and none of them were addressed by the vice president. All she did was go into ridiculous places that made no sense or attack her candidate, which we've heard 55,000 times before.
Yeah.
So even the dimmest American watching this would go turn to whoever he or she are with and go, she's not answering the questions.
Mm-hmm.
This has happened one other time in U.S. history, and again, this ties into confronting the presidents. In 1920, Warren Harding did exactly the same thing.
Really?
He wouldn't answer any questions from anybody. And Americans are so fed up with 8 years of Democrats, Woodrow Wilson, it was a World War I era. They would have elected a chimpanzee. And the Republicans' chimp was Warren, because nobody knew anything about him. He's this Ohio guy who's in the Senate, never did anything. He gets into the White House, he was the absolute worst.
Mm-hmm.
The absolute worst. All he did was play cards and get drunk with his corrupt cronies, chase his mistress around while Florence Harding slept upstairs. He didn't do one damn thing for the country.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're in the same circumstance. If you cast a ballot for Vice President Harris, you are voting for someone who you don't know because she has not stated one solution to one problem.
All right, I don't want you to go. I want to hold you over. This is a very interesting point here. I'm going to explore it a little bit more with my buddy Bill O'Reilly. We'll be right back. The big wireless carriers want to limit you to two choices when it comes to data, unlimited or unlimited. And guess what? Both are stupidly expensive. So folks, stop overpaying for data you're never going to use. That's like paying for a pot of coffee when you only need a cup, or filling your entire truck bed full of gas when you only need a tank. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you get to choose how much data you actually want. Listen to this. For just $25 a month, get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data, which is more than enough, plus mobile hotspot. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is easy. There's no contract. There's no activation fees. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you sign up with Pure Talk. Here with our buddy Bill O'Reilly. You know, Bill, you made a very interesting point. You said she didn't persuade anybody to vote for it, because that's funny. I said the same thing in my own mind anyway. What did she say that would cause somebody on the fence to say, you know what, that's profound. You know what, that's going to help me. You know what, I hadn't thought about that. In fact, it might turn them off. So is that how you saw it?
Well, I know why she is avoiding all questions about policy, okay? Because she doesn't understand the policy. And once she gets involved with that, a skilled interviewer would draw it out. For example, Ukraine. All right, do you have a plan, Madam Vice President, to end this thing? She has no plan to end it. And the Middle East is even more complicated. Now, Baier tried to get into the Iranian funding terrorists, but she just shut him down with a bunch of bilge, B-I-L-G-E, and that you couldn't get through. But here's another point for anybody who was watching the debate with an open mind. And remember, the Democrats, as they did in 20, are running against Trump. They're making it about Trump, not her. There's not a groundswell of support for Kamala Harris. She's not Barack Obama, all right? So anyway, she comes in and she won't even admit one thing that the Biden administration did wrong. Not one. Now, that's the mark of narcissism. I wouldn't call her a narcissist. That would be unfair of me to do that, because I don't know her. But a narcissist is someone who will never admit a mistake, ever. And on The View, we all heard it. Is there anything you would do differently? Can't think of anything. Are you kidding me? You wouldn't do Afghanistan differently? You do the same thing? That got 13 military people killed and diminished American power worldwide? You do the same thing? That's outrageous.
Let me ask you this before we run out of time. I'm not asking you who's going to win the election. That's a stupid question. People ask me, I say, well, what do you, if I tell you we're going to win, does that make you feel better? I mean, so here's the thing. How do you see this election going, though? You know, you get a sense, you get a feel for things. What do you make of it right now?
Trump has some momentum now. Harris is trying to get somehow, but she has failed. She has no momentum. That's why Trump booked Madison Square Garden. So I get all these calls and letters going, well, he's not going to win New York, and he won't. Why is he wasting time in Madison Square Garden? Because it's a spectacle. He's going to pack it with 20,000 people screaming, and it's be like a Rolling Stones concert. And he'll come out, and they'll be all over the place, and that video will go everywhere, and he'll present himself as a winner, as that people are groundswelling for him. And he's going to do some other arena shows for the same reason. It's psychological. Mark, the final point I want to make, and you know this, there are a lot of dumb Americans, and I'm sorry they're dumb. I wish they weren't dumb. I wish everybody was smart like you and me. Okay? They're not. They're not. They vote emotion. They vote what they read on the Internet. They vote what their girlfriend tells them. It's insane. So they are susceptible to that kind of a spectacle, and that's why the Trump people are going to do it. I don't see in the next 2 weeks plus any opportunity for Kamala Harris to gain momentum, There's not going to be a quick Kentucky Derby type close from her because she cannot articulate any vision for this country at all.
That's very, very interesting, and I think it's a very wise point, too. And this constant attack on Trump, they're not telling us things that we haven't heard for the last 8 years. Yeah, it's boring. You're right. By the way, your book is fantastic. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, he didn't ask to come on here to hawk his book. I like his book a lot, Confronting the Presidents. It's a lot of great history in there. That's why it was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. And by the way, that history is still there. If you want to get your copy, you can go to Amazon.com. Thank you, my friend. Very, very edifying.
Anytime, Mark, and your staff's really good. I want to say that. Rich, first rate.
Yeah, he's been with me only 23 years. 23 years, you believe that?
Mark, that's a miracle. With you, 23 years? I mean, come on. That's like walking across the Red Sea.
Hey, I've done that. Anyway, God bless you, my friend. I appreciate you.
A good conversation. Thanks for having me in.
You got it, buddy. Confronting the President's very, very good book. He has very interesting insight, I think. And but honestly, I would not have had the patience or the talents. You know, I'll tell you something funny. The night before I knew that I was going to propose to my wife, we were at dinner. I don't think I've ever said anything about this, Mr. Producer. And I was very nervous. And my face is down in the food, basically, and I look up and I say, you know, Sean says I'm not very patient. And she looked at me and said, okay, I know. And then I went back to eating, and she wondered, she knew later why. She said, I was wondering why you had to announce that to me. Because the next day I was going to propose, that's why. Just wanted her to know. I would have no patience for Kamala Harris. None. Not that she'd ever come on an interview with me, but you see, Bret Baier, they make it like Bret Baier changed. He was an attack. No, Bret Baier didn't change. Bret Baier has interviewed Democrats and Republicans pretty much the same way. He's on TV 5 nights a week, sometimes more. And he has these Democrats in, he has the Republicans in. He spends a lot of time talking to these people, interviewing them, questioning them. He's not rude. He doesn't interrupt them. You know, we have some of these hosts who never shut the hell up. And I shut them off. Or who bring people on for the purpose of creating controversy. You know, 4 years ago this, and 10 years ago that, and Ernie Grabotsky said this, and you learn nothing. It's all cheap shot journalism. But that's not Baier. But he understands that in the case of Kamala Harris, her strategy is to run away from her record, to run away from the things that she has said. So he's trying to pin her down. Journalists are not Bob Woodward, a grifter who writes these books, or maybe he doesn't write them, I don't know, based on gossip. And so many people deny what's in the books. Remember when former CIA director, his wife, denied, but it doesn't matter. And they timed the release. And by the way, all you folks who've written these wonderful books, some of them are friends of mine. I've got a whole stack of them. Literally, we have 6 books, don't we, Mr. Producer? I'm not going to take time, with 19 days left in the election, to do a book interview. I'm just not going to do it, even with buddies of mine. They're going to have to wait till after the election. I have 3 hours a day. We have to talk about the news. I'm trying to bring candidates on. The candidates are lined up at the door. I can't turn this into a candidate program either. So I bring them in from time to time. We talk about them. We give you the information about them. We hope we can help them get across the finish line. But I'm not going to do book notes for the next 19 days right up to the election. It's not going to happen. And you guys and your publishers should know better. I've never released a book right before an election. Not because it has anything to do with sales, because I'm a mission-oriented person. And I'm not going to take time from that to talk about a great book. Bill O'Reilly and I were talking about the debate. He has a great book, so we mentioned it in passing, and he didn't ask to come on to talk about his book. In fact, he didn't ask to come on at all. He just wanted to take his take on it. Now, boy, more than half the program's over. I want to get into something here. There's a guy running for the Senate in in Arizona. His name is Ruben Gallego. He's a Marxist. He's a radical leftist. He's spending an enormous amount of money. Again, the Democrat Party oligarchs, the ruling class, the establishment, they're pouring millions and millions in Arizona because they want that seat. This guy is a sleazeball, just like Dougie Emhoff is a sleazeball. And over at the Free Beacon, likely to give birth any day, quote-unquote, Ruben Gallego served pregnant wife with divorce papers. She was blindsided. The Arizona Democrat also wanted his ex-wife, Kate Gallego, to pay his attorney's fees. Oh, wow. I bet they haven't discussed this on the Morning Schmo. Did Mika bring this up? How about the lady who used to serve from the Senate? I can't remember her name, and I don't want to remember her name. Yeah, what's her name? How about that? On December 15, 2016, Representative Ruben Gallego filed for divorce from his wife, Kate Gallego, then a Phoenix City Councilwoman. He filed a motion to seal the case on the same day. That seal was lifted Thursday. Let's see. That would be today. No, last Thursday. After a 10-month court battle between the Gallegos and the Washington Free Beacon, in which the Free Beacon prevailed in a superior court, the Arizona Court of Appeals, and finally on Wednesday evening at the Arizona Supreme Court, I think this was yesterday, which rejected a last-ditch effort from the couple to keep the records under wraps. What were they hiding from the electorate? It was Ruben Gallego who moved to seal the record back in 2016. In his memorandum making the case to the court, he noted that Kate Gallego had not yet been served with divorce papers, nor had her attorney entered an appearance in the case, but that she was likely to give birth any day. What kind of sleazeball files divorce papers on his wife when she's about to give birth? Gallego's petition for divorce stipulated that the parties' marriage is irretrievably broken and that there's no reasonable prospect of reconciliation. But Kate Gallego appears to have been blindsided by her husband's decision. When she responded to her husband's filing in February 2017, she said she was without knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief about her husband's claim that the marriage was broken beyond repair, and she denied the allegation. Oh, what was going on, I wonder? The newly unsealed file also shows that Gallego wanted his wife to foot the bill for the divorce proceedings, stipulating that he was entitled to an award of attorney's fees pursuant to an Arizona statute allowing a court to award attorney's fees based on several factors. So there he is. His wife's about to give birth to their child. He files divorce papers, puts it under seal, blindsides her, and then says, and I want her to pay for it. This is the guy that wants to be the senator from Arizona, where there's early voting. Kate Gallego saw things differently, asking the court in her February 2017 response to, quote, enter an order that husband contribute to the wife's attorney's fees and costs. Gallego pressed the court in his opening bid to ensure that his wife would not be entitled to long-term spousal maintenance, quote unquote, asking the judge to find that neither party is in need or entitled to an award of long-term spousal maintenance. He didn't even want to provide support to somebody who would be his ex-wife. This is a punk. It's going to have to wait, Rich. The Kate Gallego argued that she was entitled to spousal maintenance. She waived her rights to any such support in the final divorce decree. The pair acknowledged they were financially independent and no financial assistance by means of spousal maintenance is required now or hereafter. Now, the divorce was finalized in April 2017. Just over a year later, in his telling, the 39-year-old Gallego met 25-year-old... Ooh, I knew there was something. 25-year-old Sidney Barron at the congressional baseball game. His own accounts of what happened next vary. In his book, They Called Us Lucky, Gallego writes of proposing to Sidney in February 2019, just 8 months after their meeting. In February 2019, I asked her to marry me. He writes, the two were legally married in December of 2019, but went on to announce their engagement on social media 2 months later. Gallego described himself as the happiest man in the world. She said yes. The two held a wedding in Puerto Rico. Throughout the legal proceeding this year, the Gallegos maintained they were pressing to keep the record sealed in order to protect their young son. The partially unredacted file released on Thursday contains no personal information about any child. That's the man who wants to be your senator, Arizona. We call him a sleazeball. How about you women in the suburbs? You like this guy? You like to be served divorce papers under seal when you're about to give birth to your child? That's the man who wants to be a senator from Arizona. All right, where am I, Rich? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The big wireless carriers want to limit you to two choices when it comes to data, unlimited or unlimited. And guess what? Both are stupidly expensive. So folks, stop overpaying for data you're never going to use. That's like paying for a pot of coffee when you only need a cup, or filling your entire truck bed full of gas when you only need a tank. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you get to choose how much data you actually want. Listen to this. For just $25 a month, get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data, which is more than enough, plus mobile hotspot. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is easy. There's no contract. There's no activation fees. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you sign up with Pure Talk. So the Catholic Church, diocese in New York, they have this big fundraising event, this Al Smith event. They've had it for decades and decades. It's to raise money for Catholic Charities, which is a fantastic charitable organization. And they do it every election. And 40 years ago, Mondale didn't show up, and of course he was slaughtered by Ronald Reagan. So Kamala Harris decided that she didn't want to go. You know, I'll say this. I talked a lot about Jews and to my Jewish brothers and sisters. Let me talk to my Catholic friends. These people believe in abortion on demand. They do, in fact, as Waltz did, believe that if there's a botched abortion, there should be no obligation to save the baby. That's the law now in Minnesota, right now. And she picked him as a running mate. That's what would have happened if they passed the Democrat bill in May 2022. That was in there. They don't believe in Roe v. Wade. They don't believe in life. They don't believe in the border and all the horrible things that are going on the southern border. But it's the most radical position that you can imagine. The taxpayers should fund abortion on demand, even infanticide, that there should be no parental notification of any kind, no limits of any kind. That's not Roe. Roe said in the last 3 months that the state can regulate. They can even ban. Today, Roe v. Wade would be viewed as a right-wing conspiracy. That's how radical these people are. And then to diss the Catholic Church in New York that's trying to raise money, truly, for orphans, for single mothers, for all kinds of purposes, and you don't have to be Catholic to get the funds, to diss it. Because what? Because she doesn't agree with the faith, or because she's just too damn stupid to get up there in front of an audience. Ladies and gentlemen, we've never had a candidate like this in American history. We've never had a candidate who's been appointed that never received a vote from anybody to be the nominee of a party. We've never seen anything like this, ever. And so I say to people who are on the fence, do you really hate Donald Trump more than you love America? Is that it? Because if she gets elected, you look in the mirror and think about what you're handing off to your children and your grandchildren. This is lunacy. It's insanity. You don't have to go along with this. When we come back, remember how they had to adjust the unemployment numbers? 818,000 more unemployed. Oh, I'm sorry, we made a mistake. How they have to keep changing the inflation numbers because they're higher than they want to reveal. Remember how they kept saying the Democrats, they're surrogates, they're phony moderators during the debates? Remember how they kept saying crime is actually down, it's actually down? Well, the FBI quietly changed their numbers, covertly. No, it's actually way up. I want to talk about that when we return.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Blaze Media, Joseph McKinnon. FBI covertly changes its crime statistics for 2022, revealing that Donald Trump is right all along. Now notice how the media took the FBI statistics and used it as a cudgel against Donald Trump for the last 4 months. The FBI originally claimed that violent crime dropped in 2021. It actually went up. We all knew it went up. We can see. We have eyes. President Donald Trump has repeatedly suggested that crime is far worse than government officials care to admit, particularly in Democrat-run cities. Democrat operatives and the liberal media have claimed the reverse is true, citing incomplete FBI data indicating a drop in violent crime in the first 2 years of the Biden-Harris administration. It appears that Trump was correct when he told Time magazine, quote, the FBI fudged the numbers, unquote, and possibly also when he suggested during the second presidential debate that the FBI, that data was, quote, a fraud, just as he appears to have been correct about the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics' bogus numbers last month. You don't think the bureaucracy, you don't think the ruling class is desperate for Kamala Harris to win? They love life. They love ruling over you and lording over you. They're having a blast. The Crime Prevention Research Center recently reported that the FBI stealthily changed its crime data for 2022, a year in which cities like Phoenix, New York City, and Los Angeles failed to submit crime data. For God's sakes! You have two of the biggest cities, the two biggest cities in America, New York and L.A., and, of course, Phoenix is massive. Well, I'm sorry, we failed to mention that. Whereas the Bureau originally claimed that violent crime fell by 2.1% that year, a claim USA Today and other publications have made ample use of for their Democrat officials' benefit. The FBI subsequently adjusted its statistics to reflect that violent crime actually spiked by at least 4.5%. Now, the FBI did not bother highlighting this narrative, destroying change in its September 23 press release concerning national crime statistics. Real Clear Investigation has noted that the change was only cryptically referred to in a footnote in the September Uniform Crime Reporting Program Report on Crime in 2023, which stated in the footnote, quote, the 2022 violent crime rate has been updated for inclusions in CIUS, their system, 2023. According to the CPRC, with the adjustments, there is a net increase of 80,029 more violent crimes, 1,699 more murders, 7,780 more rapes, 33,559 more robberies, 37,091 more aggravated assaults. Oops, I'm sorry. Representative Darrell Issa responded to the FBI's quiet correction. You'll never believe it. FBI reporting was wrong and violent crime did not, in fact, go down. We all knew this. And yet they hand us lies like they do about inflation going down, like they do about unemployment going down. This is why the regime wants to censor disinformation and misinformation, quote unquote. Tweeted Auron McIntyre, podcast host and columnist at The Blaze. Elon Musk's America PAC wrote, they want to give you the illusion that cities are safe, but now we know the truth. I've checked the data on total violent crime from 2004 to 2022. Carl Moody, professor of economics at the College of William and Mary and research director at the CPRC, told Real Clear Investigations. There were no revisions, none, from 2004 to 2015. And from 2016 to 2020, there were small changes of less than 1 percentage point. The huge changes in 2021 and 2022. Wait a minute. Ooh, during Harris's administration, especially without an explanation, make it difficult to trust the FBI data. Real Clear Investigations indicated the FBI did not respond to repeated requests for comment. By other measures, it appears things are actually far worse than the FBI media have let on. Again, comporting with Trump's sense of how things have deteriorated. John Lott Jr., this guy's genius, president of CPRC, told Blaze Media, there are two measures, told Beck, There are two measures that we have of crime, and the media just seems to be looking for one of these measures and not realizing what it's measuring. Oh, they realize it. So crime shot up in 2023. And they underreported. Amazing, isn't it? Underreported. Over 80,000 violent crimes. 1,700 murders. Almost 8,000 rapes. Almost 34,000 robberies. Almost 37,000 more aggravated assaults. Oh, I'm sorry, we overlooked them. New York City hadn't reported. Los Angeles hadn't reported. Phoenix hadn't reported. For God's sakes, these people lie all the time. So they can't run on reducing crime. They can't run on reducing illegal immigration. They can't run on reducing inflation. So they attack. Now, we're going to have two great shows this weekend, folks. Great shows. Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Two brand new shows. And according to the data that we get from Fox, you tune into the program first and foremost to hear my opening statement, and there are great guests. I'm going to have a killer opening statement on Saturday. I'm working on it right now. And I'm going to have a killer opening statement on Sunday. So please don't miss it. I don't know if there's football, there's baseball, there's tiddlywinks, there's bocce. I don't know what the hell's going on the weekend. That's why I always tell you record it on your smart TV, on your DVR, whatever you use. That way you'll always have it. That way you'll always have it. We even do that in our house. But we're going to have a great brigadier general on the program, General Spaulding. I saw this guy somewhere. He was fantastic, as well as Victor Davis Hanson, America's wise man. That's Saturday. Sunday, we're going to have the great governor, America's governor of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis, and our dear friend Byron Donalds. That's Sunday. Two killer shows, and I'm going to tell you now, two killer opening statements. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm telling you in advance, the opening statement on Saturday, I'm going to deal with this. Oh, you Republicans and MAGA and conservatives and Trump, you're going to destroy democracy. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ram it down their throats. I'm sure you're going to love it. It is they who are the fascists and the Marxists. It is they who hate republicanism, constitutionalism, and democracy. I'm going to hammer this. So I hope, and I'm going to go into her record, I've decided too. Really deep. Oh, the prosecutor. Oh, she's still out there talking about all these fantastic things she did, but she didn't do them. So I hope you'll check it out. Yes. Let's see here. Give me 1 second, folks. We're live and national, which means when I only have one computer screen because the other one's not working, it becomes what we call in the trade professionally a pain in the ass. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
It's always a pleasure to have really a fantastic columnist, Miranda Devine of the New York Post. New York Post, one of our favorite newspapers here. You know, Miranda Devine, I don't have favorite newspapers anymore because they all suck, to be perfectly honest with you. But there's like 5 of them that I like. And I like the New York Post a lot. You know, the Washington Examiner, Washington Times, and so forth. But there's very few anymore. But let's get back to this. You've written a very important piece about Iran and Biden and essentially Kamala Harris, too. And I want the whole nation to hear about this. Can you explain it?
Yes, sure, Mark. I'm just going to not take credit for it, though. It's my brilliant colleague, John Levin, who's written the story, and it's really disturbing. It is. And
let me just say this. I've met him. He's a great guy. Anyway, go right ahead. I'm sorry.
He's a great guy, and he's one of my great friends at the New York Post, and just brilliant. So what he's broken is it's just more of the same story that we know about with the Biden-Harris administration cozying up to Iran. And, you know, that was, remember, as soon as they got into office, they reanimated the Iran deal that Donald Trump had cleverly nixed. Well, now what John Levin found through the George Washington University researchers who've put out this new report is that Iranian operatives in the United States are funding these anti-Semitic campus protests. and spreading propaganda around America. And Vice President Kamala Harris, the would-be commander-in-chief, is photographed very happily mingling with an Imam who is one of the central influence purveyors of Iran. I mean, his name is Imam Muhammad Ali Elahi. And
easy for you to say.
Sort of pandering. Sorry?
Easy for you to say. I can't pronounce these names. Anyway, go ahead.
No. So he is just one of the figures that Kamala Harris disturbingly has cozied up to. And she was photographed at this vaccination event in Detroit in the middle of the pandemic in 2021. And she just sung his praises and, gushed about how wonderful he was. And he then gushed about how wonderful she was. It was an absolute love fest. And you can see from her body language she's doing the usual pandering that she always does. Doesn't care that this guy is a terror merchant of death. Because she just takes her marching orders from the blob. And clearly the blob, which is that sort of triumvirate of the State Department, the CIA, and the Pentagon, they are in favor of the Biden-Harris-Obama plan to enrich and empower Iran for some ungodly reason. During Donald Trump's presidency, Iran was on its knees. It was broke. It didn't have the money to pay its proxies to attack Israel as they did last October 7. But unfortunately, the genie's out of the bottle. And now, I don't know if America is on the verge of war with Iran, but that's the way we're heading.
Isn't this one of the great scandals at some point that needs to be unraveled? Yeah. God willing, if Donald Trump takes over the executive branch. This administration's alliance with Iran, even now when Israel wants to hit their nuclear sites and their oil sites, who's standing in the way? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. This is utterly inexplicable. The amount of money, $200 billion, that has been flushed into Iran, either directly or through the failure to enforce these oil restrictions and so forth. They breathe life into this regime that is hated by its people, and they just keep holding Israel back rather than allowing Israel to take care of business. I mean, isn't this one of the great scandals?
Yes, it is. I mean, there are so many scandals in this administration, it's hard to know where to stop. But I would say this would be at the top, probably alongside the illegal immigration invasion. Mm-hmm. We have the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, very unworthy of the role. He basically ushered in his childhood friend from the Parisian school that he went to, a man by the name of Robert Malley, was the Iran envoy, brought back into the fold with his best friend, Antony Blinken, sponsoring him. And he's now been on suspension without pay, which is a pretty big thing in the federal government. They don't often suspend people without pay, pending this FBI investigation that has been going on, and you know that there'll be no outcome until after the election. And he's allegedly has given secrets or mishandled classified information to the benefit of, the Iranians that are his friends. And there should have been front page of all the newspapers around the country about this scandal, and it just got buried. And then we find out that Robert Malley's pals, some of his people that he's mentored, one of them in particular, a woman by the name of Ariana Tabatini, has a very high-ranking position inside the Pentagon where she has access to classified information. Robert Malley, even after he was suspended without pay, he was still getting access to classified information. He was involved in meetings about Iran, even while on suspension. And we just saw that the Inspector General put out a report about that, which again sank barely without a trace, apart from the New York Post and a couple of other, places. And I know you did something on it. So no one really knows about the scandal, Mark. That's the problem.
God forbid, Miranda, if she wins, they're going to double down, triple, quadruple down. They're going to get cockier than ever before. Israel's going to be in a dire situation, as will our country. I mean, this is very foreboding, isn't it?
It is. And the problem, you look at Kamala Harris, she's controlled by the same people who controlled Joe Biden, the blob, I guess we can call them, deep state, whatever we like to give these shadowy figures, who
Bastards.
also covered up the Biden family corruption for so many years. But she is a hollow person. She doesn't have any knowledge of the world or, I actually couldn't find Iran on a map. So she's just spouting talking points that have been provided to her by her minders. But imagine her as commander-in-chief. She was asked the other day, what do you think is America's worst enemy? And she just, trots off, it has to be Iran, blah, 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 blithely saying that. Well, yeah, probably that's right, but what does that mean? She will quite happily commit U.S. troops, while at the same time she's handcuffing Israel's hands. Even today, she decided to insert herself into this great news about Israel managing to knock off the head of Sinwar, the head of Hamas. She gave this press conference and, was pretending that she was a tough person. Even then, she's saying, well, now to Israel it has to end.
Exactly. Miranda, you are a national treasure. Keep it up, and God bless you. And we want to keep having you back if that's okay. Take care of yourself.
The Mark Levin Show, the pool feed for the conservative media. Dive in now. 877-381-3811.
So I talked about this FBI report on crime, that it was a bunch of BS. That in fact crime is going through the roof, and they underreported tens of thousands of violent acts. Over 80,000. But the media were excited. You see, they were excited to tell you that no, crime's actually down because we want Kamala to get elected, don't you know? That's right. Anything she does or doesn't do, we're going to defend. And remember, Trump's a dictator. Well, he wasn't 4 years ago. No, he's a dictator. You gotta believe us. Here's a montage flashback of Democrats spreading disinformation that violent crime is falling. Hat tip, Grabian. Cut 16, go.
According to a newly revised FBI stats, violent crime in America has actually gone up, not down, as Democrats claim.
Trying to make people think that crime is up when crime is down under Joe Biden. Now, I don't know how often that gets reported on this network, so if you're watching this at home, do yourself a favor and look up the data.
Crime is down across the country.
Crime is down, Jim. Yeah. This claim is not only not true, it's the opposite of reality. Crime has been falling for 1.5 years plus.
The FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country.
You're lying. You're lying, Congressman. You're lying. We already know that there is... The FBI just released data this week that crime is going down. Oh, my God. Why do you let this man lie on your national television like this? This is not right. You may not want to lie. You may not. No, I'm not. Lying.
We have the data. The FBI literally put out data today showing that crime is down. We have to deal in facts here.
Thank you.
Okay, it's clear as day. The FBI put out statistics. The trend line is going down. If you don't believe the FBI, independent people who look at these numbers say the same thing. But the reality is that crime is going down. You don't have to twist the facts.
As often as the former president repeats the claim that crime is rising, the facts say it is not.
FBI statistics released today show that crime is dropping. Mr. Trump remains fixated on crime, even imaginary crimes.
We have done the work. We have seen violent crimes go down because of the work that this president and this vice president has done.
Joe Biden inherited a rising high crime country. When Joe Biden passes the baton to Kamala Harris, it's a declining lower crime country.
Crime is going down.
Which the FBI just updated the numbers to.
The violent crime rate is at a 50-year low.
Now notice they never circle back and say we were wrong, we apologize. Notice that? Ever. By the way, James Carville. Doesn't that guy belong in like a mental institution or something? With heavily padded rooms? Doesn't he? I think he does. Comes out of his mouth. What a dumb guy. What a dumb guy. Yes. Detroit barbers. You know, Lawrence Jones, I love this guy. He goes into these barber shops. He goes into these diners. He likes to talk to the people. To me, it's like incredibly compelling. And so there he is in Detroit. He's talking to a bunch of barbers in a barber shop. And there's some interesting responses. I watched it earlier, and, you know, a couple of guys said Kamala. A couple of guys said, I don't know yet, 50-50. And a couple of guys said Trump. Like this. Cut 12, go.
At the end of the day, I'm Trump because I my eyes open. I can see that he was doing a lot better than what we're going through right now. You can't even go to the grocery stores right now without making a life decision on what you want to get. You know, you got to compromise. We don't have to go through that 4 years ago.
You know, just being able to just live on a day-to-day basis, it has become a little harder at this point in time.
And that should decide your vote right there, because it's only going to get worse. A couple other things I wanted to hit before we end the program. Javan Gyawali, a senior software engineer at Meta, that is Facebook, in hidden camera with O'Keefe Media Group. We shadow ban anyone criticizing Kamala. Zuckerberg will help the Democrats win. Say what? Well, take a listen. Turn up the volume. Cut 17, go.
Say your uncle in Ohio said something about
Gyawali, a senior software engineer at Meta.
Are they doing a good job protecting our democracy? Because I can see these right-wing groups setting up Instagram accounts or Facebook accounts for that matter, right? And just start posting disinformation, be like, Harris is blah blah blah.
That's all going to be demoted 100%. The civic classified is strong.
The senior software engineer also goes on to say that, quote, the person would not be notified, unquote, if they were demoted because of their anti-Kamala Harris post on Meta, and red listed, that's a new term we just learned, red listed, meaning, according to Collins Dictionary, things that are not permitted.
Would the person who posted that would he be notified that?
The person would not be notified, but there's these things that what you collect is if a bunch of items that, if at least a couple of items that a person has created has violated civic classifier, then they're also red listed.
Our OMG American Swiper asked Jeevan if Meta was shadow banning users for their anti-Kamala Harris posts. Take a look at what he says.
So is that called shadow banning?
Shadow banning,
okay,
yeah.
So they will be shadow banning.
Correct.
They will never be shown. But so they will see a dip in impressions and engagement, but they would not be officially warned of the reason why.
Correct.
We asked Gyawali if Meta has the ability to affect the upcoming 2024 election, to which he responded, yes, Meta does. Jeevan also confirmed that Mark Zuckerberg intends to help the Democrats in this election cycle.
You guys have the ability to influence the outcome of the election.
Yes.
Do you think Zuckerberg agrees? Good. Is he going to help the Democrats?
Yeah.
This little punk, this Zuckerberg, I'm working out. I'm going to box, Elon Musk. I know I could take this guy, and I'm on one leg, Mr. Producer. It's funny, people come up to me, and every one of them always says, I didn't know you were this big. Because of my voice, they think I'm 5'5", Rich, No, I'm a big guy. And yes, I know how to defend myself. But this Zuckerberg, he says, I'm out of politics. I'm not going to get involved anymore. I don't trust these bastards. I don't trust these oligarchs as far as you can throw them. I really don't. I really don't. He was very active in the last election. Not putting his finger on the scale, putting his whole company on the scale. These billionaire oligarchs who are giving hundreds of millions of dollars to these political action committees on the Democrat side, to the Harris campaign on the Democrat side, to Schumer and the Democrat Senate candidates. I don't think we're outspending a single candidate in these Senate races or these House races. Donald Trump has raised a boatload of money, almost a record amount of money, and yet Kamala Harris has raised $300-400 million more. How's that possible? It's not by little contributions, America. The oligarchs who need the ruling class and the establishment in Washington, whether they be Democrats, Marxists, Islamists, or never Trump or Republicans. They want the status quo. And by status quo, I don't mean Americanism. Status quo, I mean they're in on the transformation of America because they get rich, they get powerful. You see, constitutionalism, a representative republic, free market capitalism, free will, emphasis on the individual. This all, in the aggregate, is very troubling to the oligarch. It's very troubling to the power hungry. It's very troubling. Because if you're free to do what you want, to make as much money as you want, to create jobs, to invent things, well, then they want to cut your action. They want to cut your action. These people aren't capitalists. They're not little d Democrats. We're defending democracy. No. They're not defending democracy. They don't even know what democracy is. If they knew, they wouldn't even be using the word. It's called republicanism, little r republicanism. But they don't support any of it. Any of it. Like all the other fascists and Marxists and autocrats of every sort, they dress themselves up in the little guy. In democracy. For the vote. And yet they want to rule through the bureaucracy. They want the bureaucracy to have ubiquitous power. They call it the Leviathan. Well, you don't get to decide a damn thing. What kind of home you're going to have, what kind of lawnmower you're going to have, what kind of light bulb you're going to have. Barry Goldwater used to say. The great Barry Goldwater. Any government that has the power to control little things has the power to control big things. Truer words have never been spoken. This is an election over freedom versus tyranny. It's that simple. They understand it. Some do in the barbershop in Detroit. Apparently in the suburbs around Philadelphia. Apparently in the suburbs around many of our major cities, they don't get it. They have college degrees. They have advanced degrees. Oh, they're smart. They're book smart. They were book smart in Germany. They were book smart, in so many other countries. And yet look what happened in these advanced societies. The most horrendous types of genocidal regimes. See, a lot of these people, look, I have an advanced degree, a law degree. I won all the awards and all the honors and all the rest. I skipped 12th grade. I graduated college. I don't know, it was 2 or 3 years, whatever it was. I went through all that. And I know these people. These people. They think they should control you. These people. They think they should re-engineer human beings. These people think they should rejigger society. These people think they're smarter than everybody else. And the truth is, beyond a few textbooks that they may have memorized, they're not smart at all. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Every hour in this program, right before election day, I'm going to urge you to vote early. I'm not just trying to waste airtime on this. If it wasn't important, I wouldn't say it. If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't say it. We have a relationship, we have a trust, a loyalty, you and I. In almost every state, I think Texas, it starts Monday, we have early voting. 7 million people have voted now. I don't know if more Democrats or Republicans, but we have to outdo these people. We have our own job. Donald Trump, there's been 2 assassination attempts. The man's been shot. Don't you think at the very minimum we should vote early and try and get other people to vote? The guy's put his life on his line. They're trying to destroy his businesses and his family. They're trying to put him in prison. I don't think it's asking too much of me and everybody else to vote early. I really don't. Now, I know many of you aren't used to it. So what? The game has changed. The game has changed. I remember when basketball didn't have a 3-point rule. So what do? Keep shooting 2-pointers? No. You got to learn to shoot 3-pointers. You're voting early? Well, we got to beat them at their game. We got to take their system and ram it up their nostrils. Okay? Just tell me. You're going to try and vote early. You're going to do what you can. You're going to try and get other family members and friends to vote early if they're going to vote our way. Please. We got to book these votes, and then we got to go out and get our friends to vote. Just pick up the phone. October 7th was the 1-year mark of the worst massacre of the Jewish people in a single day since the Third Reich. We know what happened that day, and there's still 100 hostages that are being held. Sinwar was finally killed today by the Israelis and the IDF. No ceasefire, because Netanyahu is not Neville Chamberlain. He's not Biden. He's not Harris. He's Churchill. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, our brothers and sisters in Israel. We have your back, even though Kamala does not. And you, the American people, red-blooded Yanks, God bless each and every one of you. You Levinites, vote early. I'll see you tomorrow.